We had a great day yesterday in union, celebration of communion, but also the celebration of our baptisms. It was recognized the journey that these disciples have taken and to celebrate with today. And so that made me start thinking about Jesus' baptism. Come to the waters of baptism. The questions we ask are, do you trust that and do you accept Jesus as your Lord? And those are some of the questions. And so then I just started thinking about, I wonder what Jesus was asked. It's in practice for us to ask those questions now. But when Jesus was baptized, and then it got me thinking even more, what did the baptism look like, and what was going on in those baptisms yet. So what was the meaning of it for them? I did a little research, and I just want to pull us back to some of the scriptures about baptism and have us read. The first one is from Luke 3, and it describes Jesus' baptism. Luke is not as specific or as lengthy as some of the other descriptions of Jesus. Actually, very interesting to me that I noticed for the first time that Jesus is after Luke has declared that Herod, John the Baptist, was preaching and put him in prison. So that's where it leaves off, in prison. And then we see Jesus' baptism. And it's very Luke 3. Now, when all the people were baptized, Jesus was also baptized. And while he was praying, the Spirit descended on him in bodily form like a dove. A voice came from heaven, "One, my dear Son, in whom in you I take great delight." Image. A very short description of Jesus' baptism. Doesn't tell us too much. Doesn't even describe and baptize Jesus. But it tells us of his baptism, and that God kind of gave God's approval of Jesus here on earth. So another gospel passage about Jesus' baptism is in Matthew, year 1, where Jesus goes to John the Baptist and says, "I need you to baptize." Description, Matthew 3, verse 13. Then Jesus came from Galilee to John by him in the Jordan River. But John tried to prevent him, saying, "No, by you, and yet you come to me." So Jesus replied to him, "Let it happen now to fulfill all righteousness." Then John yielded to him, and after Jesus was baptized, just as he was coming up out of the water, the heavens opened, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my one dear Son, in him I take great delight." At the end, there's heavens opening and light coming through, and God saying, "In whom I take great delight." Now, there's a couple other passages about baptism, and there's one that I question about. What did baptism mean for Jesus? And so, for people before Jesus. And so I loved this image. Let me see if I can find it right quick for you. It was Peter. So you can jump over to 1 Peter, and we're in chapter 3. Verse 21 says, "It's prefigured baptism, which now saves you, not the washing off of, but the pledge of a good conscience to God through the resurrection of who went into heaven and is at the right hand of God with angels and authorities and powers subject to him." What I love about this is it's telling us what is going on through baptism. It's a pledge of good conscience to God. So we live and breathe through the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and we resurrection. And we have another image that Paul gives us of being buried to our own sin and being in the grace of Jesus Christ. I love that image as well. And talked. But there's also, it's not that we are physically being dirt, but that we are plunging into those waters in good conscience. And it is part of our relationship. It's part of our step. It's part of saying, God, we need you. That's the grace that you're giving us. So, beautiful that is here in First Peter as well about baptism. So, let's think about baptisms that you witnessed yesterday, or that your own baptism. What it means for that baptism to be your act of good conscience. Have a great day. Have a great week, and we will be praying for each one of you. We're going to jump over to our prayer line, our time together. We invite you, if you're online, to join us as well. 910. No, that's our church number. And the free conference call line is 561-1222. Again, 563-999-1222. We're on there now, and we can pray together. Or you can text the word pray to our church number, 910-1, and we will be in prayer with you and contact you that way. Have a